Hello, beautiful souls. I hope you're well. Today we have a wonderful lady again with us, Vicky. Welcome, Vicky.
Thank you, dear. It's so great to see you and to talk to you
Thank
finally.
you. Thank you for coming on the channel. I mean, Vicky, you're a good friend. You do many things. We have connected you and I regarding Japan,
Yes,
because you're a practitioner of Japanese Buddhism, and that's something I'm sure you will have the pleasure of talking about a little bit more. You're also a yoga teacher, and you're working in home care, as we could say, to helping visiting elderly people as well who are in need of presence, and your beautiful presence, because I know through your Buddhism approach, being mindful and being present is something I can really feel from you. And so I'm sure you're bringing a lot to these beautiful souls that you're there for. So those are the many things you do, and you have a lot of interests and a lot of beautiful, fascinating experiences to share with us today. So, without further ado, I'm just going to let you flowingly
are you
talk a little
sure?
bit more about you.
Thank you so much, Abigail,
It's a
to allow
pleasure.
me to be here. I was a little hesitant because, even though I'm, extroverted, I am introverted. So
Okay.
putting myself out there is something important. As I mentioned to you, we always are student, but at the same time, we're teachers.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very happy to be here. And to start, being that you mentioned Buddhism, that was a very important part of my life. To give you a little feedback beforehand, I was Catholic. I was born in New York. My parents both are Puerto Rican. My father passed away though 20 something years ago. But having that strong upbringing, even though, they didn't practice, strictly, but it's in our cultural,
Yeah.
Puerto
Hmm.
Rican being Catholic is almost like hand in hand.
Yeah.
So for me to do that switch was like 360, and people were like, "What the hell is she doing?" You know, my mother didn't talk to me for 2 weeks.
Oh, really? Okay, that bad.
How bad it was.
Mm.
But the reason it's a long story, but the reason I really got into it is because I didn't have the answers through that practice of what I was going through with my family.
Hmm.
Um, Specifically my father, because at age 20, my father was 63. He got married older. He unfortunately was diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
Mm.
So at that point, I was 20, my parents were divorced, and I was the oldest. So automatically, you don't think about it. You just say he's my father, and I have to look out for him, you know. So at 20, I'm sitting at the doctor's office, and this was because of one of the episodes that he had that he just took off and we couldn't find him. So at that point, he said, "I'm sorry to tell you, but your father has Alzheimer's." And I have no clue what Alzheimer's was. I was 20 years old. And that was the beginning of a very strong and very interesting and painful journey, I
I
must
imagine.
say,
I
um,
imagine.
that made me who I am right now. But in order for me to understand and go through that journey, I had to make certain changes because the actual practice that I was into, which was Catholicism, which I did practice and I did enjoy. I mainly enjoy going to the choir and singing. That was my main joy, belting out a choral, beautiful song.
High
But when it,
frequencies there.
huh?
High frequencies there.
Yeah,
Hmm.
very much so. Beautiful music, but eventually the practice wasn't what was resonating with me and what was giving me the answers to why the suffering.
Hmm.
There were the deep questions that even the Buddha had. So why people suffer? Why is there birth? Why is there sickness? Why is there getting old and dying? So similar questions that the Buddha had, I started to have it because my father was sick. So unfortunately, I had to endure a few years after the turmoil of trying to understand how to navigate with him during these years. So long story short, I had to become his guardian, legal guardian. I had to manage his affairs, because he would take off. My father was a veteran. He was in the army for 2 years in Germany, and he had to be honorably discharged. And I think that has to do with a lot what happened to him at such an early age, at 63, to have Alzheimer's. But that's another story. But within that situation, I started to learn about my father more and more. Ironically, having him lose a little bit slowly his they remember a lot of the old stuff, but they lose a lot of their present memories.
Yeah.
So, but he, thank goodness, never forgot who I was. So we had definitely a lot of struggle when it came to learning about the disease, learning how to manage it, learning how to live with it, and learning how to be able to do my life and have him in my life, which was a struggle because I had to leave a lot of the things that I wanted to do. I had to, leave college. I couldn't finish my bachelor. All these plans that I had as an independent person, I had to include my dad for those 10 years.
Wow.
So there's a lot of stories in between, but I can tell you that Buddhism gave me a more solid foundation to be able to handle the last few years of my life with him, and to understand that things don't happen randomly and we're not victims. So that was a huge thing that I had to learn, because within Catholicism, it's my fault. And in Spanish, we always say it's mi culpa, mi gran culpa. That's very huge. And going back to that, Buddhism said, no, you're not a victim. Yes, you make causes that bring an effect, and have to just start to clear out, and with the chanting and learning how to utilize and cleanse my six senses with the practice, I was able to see a little bit clear why my father and I had that situation. So it brought me some peace, and it brought me an understanding that my dad made decisions to put him in that situation. It wasn't my fault, but coming together, him and I, we were able to learn about our karma, our karmic relationship. And my mother, of course, and my sisters. And it was a beautiful thing. Although there was a lot of pain, my father and I became actually closer. And I, at the end, not to get mushy, but at the end, my father left peacefully. And it was actually on Father's Day, and my father left. So
synchronicities are just incredible.
Yeah, I was a little pissed off at the beginning. I'm like, why Father's Day? But then I started to realize that it was I couldn't have asked for a beautiful day like that for him to say goodbye. So so that was a very a part of my life where I did so much growth, and I was able to really understand their sufferings, because I was upset with my parents, because I felt like I had to grow up to take care of them, But at the same time, I started to learn that they themselves had to as well become adults, because their parents, my grandparents, couldn't take care of them properly. So it's a cycle that goes from generation to generation. And I felt like I broke that cycle to a certain extent with Buddhism, because it changed my perspective of how to see life. So instead of being resentful towards them, I became compassionate towards them. So
that's beautiful. I'm sorry, I just need to comment on that, because I think you have turned this challenge into a treasure of yours in breaking that transgenerational link. You're doing a healing. You've done a healing practice, I guess, through Buddhism. But I mean, you're the one who did it. Buddhism was a support, but I mean, you did it through your own resilience and your own decision not to be a victim. And I really honor how the process in which you've done that. I'm sure it has probably has been very difficult, but I think it can be inspiring to a lot of people how to transform these challenges and moments when we feel perhaps a little bit victim-like into something that can bring us immense healing, not only to ourselves, but to our whole transgenerational line, but how also it can bring these gifts to for the rest of our lives. So wow, I'm just amazing, amazing.
No, and the realization of how resilient we are. I just looking back, I'm like, I can't imagine how did I make it? You
Mm,
know, because I'll be honest with you. I mean, it wasn't an easy journey. It's not like you enter Buddhism and all of a sudden everything is bright and happy. No, you're going through you're cleansing your karma. You're breaking down all this stuff, all these
mhm.
causes, negative and good, that you're going through and that you did in the past life,
Yeah,
because you don't remember. You just, but there was a past life and you brought it into this existence, and you're living this existence with two parents that, that are bond with you. um I mean, it can get much more complex, but having to be, and I'm not saying this to proud myself, but having to be that individual who actually said, I'm done with this. We can't keep going in this direction. We have to go in this direction.
yeah.
Even though it caused me pain because not everybody understood what Buddhism was.
Mhm.
So they thought, what is this girl, Puerto Rican girl, doing, practicing this thing that she's chanting? And, it sounds like a beehive. People are making all these judgments. I'm
Yeah,
like, I didn't care. I said, I'm trying to find the truth at the end of the day.
yeah.
The truth will take me in different directions. And it took me through Buddhism.
Mhm.
That was my first, like, because, and I think many can understand that when you get into a point where you break, and many of us have gone to that point.
Yeah,
In Buddhism, they say heaven and hell is within. And believe me, I went to hell a couple of times.
I
And
imagine.
but I was able to say, if I went there, I can get out. That's what I said, even though I was going through this turmoil. But in the midst of that, it's very interesting that your consciousness is there. Your part of you that's holding you still up in that darkness is still there and saying, you got this. you know I know you're down there. I know you're in this hole and it feels like hell, but you can get out of it. And that's what kept me going, because it engulfs you. I mean, when you go into this trauma, fight or flight, because you don't have the tools. I mean, it's not like you're born and all of a sudden, oh, here's a manual. This is how you live your life.
Yeah,
I wish it would have been that way, but no, you have to really figure it out. But
absolutely.
in the midst of that, um, even like I said, even though it was a painful journey, it was an amazing way to break through that maze, if I may say. You're in this maze and you're looking for that breakthrough. And within that darkness that a lot of us can go through, you will find that breakthrough. So I encourage anybody that's gone through depression or anxiety, PTSD, it's not easy. It's very, very hard. I I I'll be honest with you. I tried medication for a few months, but I knew that that was not I was just a little desperate because I didn't have the tools at that moment. So I tried that and I said, screw this. So I just tossed them away. And I said, if I got into this, I can get out. But I had to have a tremendous amount of will and patience with myself in order to get out of it. But I can tell you this, I can empathize, I can sympathize, I guess, with those who have been at the verge of exiting, if you know what I mean,
Oh yeah, I
life.
know what you mean.
I, I I was right there for like a second or two. I said, this is a place where I think people can't go through. And I said, but I'm going through because I have too many people who care about me.
I
And
can't
I
do that to them. It's
no,
interesting, how, I had this thought one day because I'm sorry, I'm cutting you there because
no,
I've had a long journey of chronic depression and even suicidal tendency. I mean, I'm completely open about this.
no, and I
And
get it. I
you know, there
praise you
was,
for that.
sorry.
I praise you for that.
Well, you know,
Saying,
it's just, you know, I
yeah,
know there's a lot of people having these thoughts, and especially these days. But the point is, what I've realized that it's one thing to want to go, and it still gives you that feeling that there is an opening, you know, that there is a way out. But
yes,
it's very interesting that when you get to a point where you just know, it's a knowing that you're not gonna go with it. You're not going to go through it because you know of all the consequences, maybe for yourself, for people, for your soul, because you know it's kind of a, you know, do I really want to come back and having to do this all over again? And you know, am I not just, you know, shooting myself in the foot, right, by doing this? But then what's interesting is that the question sometimes when you say, okay, I can't do this, but the pain, I mean, it's actually worse than wanting to go, because then you don't have that option, you know. And this is the moment where what we really call the dark night of soul, where you have no choice to
yeah,
transmute it and go through it, because there's not that option. Even that option is not there anymore. And I'm pretty sure you know about this since you've been through the process. So that can be quite challenging as well. And you know,
yeah.
how were you able to find within yourself that strength and that resilience to say, I'm going to go through that anyway? How was what was the
Gosh.
factor for you?
Like I said before, even though I got into Buddhism, Buddhism teaches you that when you go into it very profoundly, you start to cleanse karma. So
Mm,
what my priest used to explain is that sometimes you're going to get a lot of stuff out,
mm,
you know. So I think to myself, okay, this is stuff that I need to purge, you know, and then I need to stick to it
yeah.
until it comes out of my system. But I needed to understand it as well because there's a reason for it, you know. And one of the reasons that came out was that because I always was a child of expression. I knew that when I came to this world, I wanted to sing, I wanted to dance, I wanted to talk, I wanted to travel. I was just very extroverted. But with the upbringing that I had, I was told not to a lot of times. So not being able to express myself gave me a lot of anxiety.
Mm.
So that was definitely a major factor. So I promised myself that I needed to express myself, that I'm not going to hurt anybody, because I was always thinking if I say this, I'm going to hurt my mother, I'm going to hurt my father, I'm going to hurt, you know. But I had to say enough is enough. You're not responsible for people's reaction. You're
That's a big step.
responsible. Yeah.
Mhm.
You're responsible for your own actions and your reactions.
Yeah.
So I had to stop thinking, you know, they can take care of themselves. You know, if I say something, they have many choices,
Yeah.
and it's not my wrongdoing. I'm not saying go and disrespect someone. That's not what
Mm.
I'm saying. I'm saying that express yourself, but don't be worried about the comeback.
Absolutely.
You know, be brave. If it's positive, great. If it's negative, again, you have to understand that these dynamics are going to happen. So that was a breakthrough to me.
Mhm.
But one thing I have to mention is that when you go through a lot of PTSD or anxiety, your body, even though let's say you got the trigger out of the way, you know, your body's still responding to the anxiety. So because you've been there so many times, you have to let your body heal. So not only you're healing your mind, you're healing your heart, you have to heal your body. So um, I had to go through certain things. You know, that's when I started taking yoga.
Mhm.
That's when the yoga came in, because I said, okay, let me take a practice, because working out in a gym and exerting myself wasn't helping my nervous system. I had to do something more calmly to get my nervous system to calm down.
Yeah.
So I started doing the yoga, especially the restorative yoga, which helped with the, you know, the breathing exercises, the postures to help you calm your nerves. So it was it took a while, but I had to not think of time and think of one day at a time. Okay, this day wasn't a good day, but tomorrow's another day. So I had to go step by step and start, you know, letting go of things that didn't serve me. in order for me to focus on healing myself, so it took a lot of patience, a lot of determination and willingness to look into things that may not be conventional, other than obviously the medication, which, it's okay if you decide to take it, but I decided not to. I didn't want to go that route as my family did, because that's what they decided to do, but not what I wanted to do.
Yeah, I understand.
So I had to slowly learn about myself, learn about even my biology, my chemistry, because a lot of this time it's like you don't learn about your physicality, and you just forget. You just wake up in the morning and you jump out of your body and you just keep going. But why not learn about your biology or your physicality, or who's running this? I know I have a soul inside of me, but there's an intelligence in this body that if that I wanted to tap into. So that was something that guided me, as well as the healing that I was going through started to get me more curious about the body that I'm living in. Because it's like, I have this metaphor that I talk about, it's like getting into your car, but you don't know how to drive, you don't know how the car functions. You just
Yeah.
get in there, you turn the engine on, you put the gas and it goes. That's the same most of the time what we do with our bodies. We just wake up and keep going, but we don't know the mechanics of it. But through this journey, I've learned a lot about it, and it's fascinating because I'm like, there's so much within ourselves. We have everything really within ourselves. We keep
Absolutely.
looking outside and we're like, well, silly, we have it inside.
Yeah.
It's the microcosm, right?
Yeah.
We see the macro
Mm-hmm.
and the micros inside. It's like every cell of your body is another living being. They
Absolutely.
have a digestive system, they have a nervous system, they're little beings inside that are working as a community and helping all these organs and this body that's called Vicky right now move
Mm-hmm.
around this other beautiful being that's Mother Earth. So when you start putting these puzzles together, you start having aha moments and you're like, oh my gosh. So you just keep, you know, reading and researching and listening to other people. And that's how I got into all this stuff, because
Yeah.
it never ends, the information you're getting never ends. But there comes a time where you have to stop. You just
Yeah.
like, you know, and that's where I'm at right now. I mean, I know we were going all over the place myself, but where I'm at right now, when you asked me about how did I um, start to go through the process of healing, was one day at a time, and getting to learn about who I really am. Who's this person in this body, and who's this body? What is this body made of? And that gave you so much power, because then you start realizing that you're the one in charge. There's
Immense
nobody else.
responsibility, but beautiful sovereignty.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then you start getting into these other types of feelings and what we call vibrations and frequencies. When you're down here, you start getting into this realm of negativity. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't shared this, but I've had paranormal activities when I've been in that negative realm. And I can tell you that if you will attract certain beings that are not in that good place.
Definitely.
And yeah, so I've had experienced that, and I knew that it's because I was not in the good vibration.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a vessel for that type of energy.
Mm-hmm.
But thank goodness, I mean, with my chanting, I was able to eradicate, if I may say, these entities that would come in when I was not in my best place, and then start to work on being on a more higher frequency.
Yeah.
So even with that, then you start attracting and being in an environment that it's for your best interest and for the people around you. So when they say, oh, I always have this luck that people are always picking on me and giving me a hard time. And I can understand that, because at one point in my life, I was bullied as a kid. I was bullied as an adult. I mean, and And honestly, we're being bullied in a big
Oh yeah.
way now.
As a human race, we are completely
Exactly.
bullied anyway already. But
Yeah.
mhm.
So when you're in that, now I can understand that if you're in a lower place, and it's not that I'm blaming anybody, but everybody's been there. You will be in a place where there's people in that
Yeah,
environment. So if you
absolutely.
want to get yourself out of that environment, you start with yourself. You start
Mhm.
bringing better things. You start thinking better. One thing in Buddhism is that we have to pay attention to our thoughts, our words, and our deeds. So that's one thing that as soon as I got into the practice, I started to pay attention is, okay, what am I thinking of? What am I saying? And what am I doing? Because all those factors are going to create a cause.
Mhm.
And if I want to do something, if I want to create a good effect, I have to be a good cause, you
Yeah.
know? So I hope that answers your question. I know it was a long
Yeah,
answer.
not all, but I mean, it's there's a lot of things there to pick
Oh
up
my
on. So I mean,
gosh.
it's really rich.
Yeah.
And you're coming right now towards this whole question of mindfulness, which in presence, which is absolutely crucial. I mean, it's something I really, again, but I think like everyone, we're struggling sometimes, trying to be as much as presence as we can. But
Yes.
mindfulness is really something absolutely crucial to my practice anyway. I'm trying as well. Uh, how would you say? Well, first of all, why Japanese Buddhism while I'm there? While I'm there, why Japanese Buddhism first? And second, how does mindfulness kind of fit into all this for you in this particular practice you're
Good
doing?
question. When I had my first, I guess dark of the night spirit, whatever you call it,
Dark Night of the Soul.
exactly, dark night of the soul. My first encounter with that was during a time where I guess I couldn't take any. I felt the pressure of my father, and then being in a relationship. I couldn't anymore. I just,
Mm.
and then all of a sudden I got it to that point. Mo- uh, Moving forward, I just said, okay, I'm not going to take medication. So what am I going to do? So I started reading. I wanted to understand about many subjects in the matter, of why did I get to that point? How does the body react? Spiritually, I wanted to understand, is there another answer for, besides Catholicism? So all I did for like a few months was just go to work, go home, shower, eat, and go to bed and read. I did that for months. So I kept reading. My mom thought I was crazy, well, a little bit, but I started reading, and then I had a good friend who was Italian. He's a great chef right now in Argentina, and he was my sponsor. So we were both in that same time in our lives. We needed a better understanding and a vehicle to help us learn how to navigate life. Okay. So one day he called me up and he says, Vicky, I think I found, what we're looking for. And I go, really? So I just didn't even think about it. I trusted him so much that I said, let's go. Let's go to the meeting. So I went to the meeting. It was in Miami, Coral Gables, and all I remember was this chanting going on. It was like this hum, like a beehive. And I was like mesmerized by it. And they had a visiting priest there. So I just sat down with him, and all I can remember, because it was a long time ago, it was like 25 years ago. The priest turned around, very, very beautiful and radiant, and even to this day, I can't not say verbatim that this is what he said, but he said basically that, you know everything in life our life is based on our decisions that we make. you know we have the power. Nothing else has the power to dictate how our life, and that was, for me, I know it's very simple what he said, but for
Oh,
me
but it's
was
important.
was a powerful statement, because all this time I felt like I always had something else that was controlling and manipulating my life. But with those simple words, I said, okay, where do I sign? I was like, where do I sign up? There was no question. I think, I mean, it was like, you got me there. And that was my commencement in Buddhism, but it was particularly Japanese Buddhism. And this particular Buddhism, and I'll briefly talk about it, it's based on the law of cause and effect, on the teachings of the Lotus Sutra. And Shakyamuni Buddha was the original historical Buddha that 3,000 years ago was in lived 3,000 years ago in India. He was a
Mhm.
prince, and this is all historical. He decided to leave his princehood, and I think it was at 19 years old he left everything behind, and he had only a begging bowl and a robe because he wanted to find out why people suffer, you know. And he left a legacy of teachings, and it is said to be at 80,000, but obviously they use numbers sometimes to exaggerate the amount of teachings, but it's not necessarily 80,000. But one of the last teachings that he taught was the Lotus Sutra. He taught it 8 years before he passed. And this particular sutra, as I mentioned, is based on the law of cause and effect. And we do have a mantra. So it's not a stillness or a silent meditation. It's called an active meditation, and it's a chant. So we chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo consistently, and it's this beautiful rhythm with a high vibration that when you get into it, it really does a lot. It does something to you for sure when you get into it. Yeah.
I was wondering, do you think would you be comfortable, you who love singing, to perhaps share a bit of it, or is it too long, or how would you,
No,
what would
it's
be
not
your
too long.
comfort level with that? Just to chant it for us today a cappella right now, like now.
Okay.
Is that
Um,
something be comfortable, or if you're not,
no,
problem?
I will, and I actually have my beads here.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll share a little bit of the chant.
Okay.
Okay, the chant is the universe explained in the chant. So Nam Myoho Renge Kyo on a deeper level. It's the universal mystic law of cause and effect. I mean, that's like a little snippet of, but it's so vast, you know. So within the teaching of the Lotus Sutra, Shakyamuni Buddha, within that teaching, when I read the sutra, it's pretty very complex, but it talks about systematically how life works. So I think that would be a different conversation,
Yeah.
but it's fascinating because, and it's called Ichinen Sansen. It explains to you how the cause and effect works. So as you and I are speaking here, we're creating cause and effect. So I'm talking, you're receiving information, and then we're putting it out, and there's this cycle that's going on and on and on. And with the chant, we have been taught that when we chant Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, we start clearing our six senses. So we have the five senses that we talk about a lot, you know.
Yeah.
And then for Buddhism, the sixth sense is the mind. So with the chant, the powerful chant of Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, we clarify, we clear our six senses, so we can better perceive the information that's being received. So as you clear these channels of getting information in, you're able to exert better information out. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So with that said, I mean, there's so many experiences that I have with the practice. That has helped me to not react, but to kind of pause before reacting, so I can make sure I say the best thing that I can say or do.
Wow.
So, because when we are in defense mode, you know, if somebody comes in and attacks one verbally or physically, believe me, I'm Puerto Rican. I can have a hot temper.
I do have a temper too. I know what you mean.
Yeah, you know, that Latin temper, you know, you can, we cannot associate because you're French, I'm Spanish, you know, the Italians and so forth. But one eventually starts to pause. It's like everything slows down. Your reaction slows down. And sometimes I even catch myself like, that's a weird reaction, but it's a better reaction, you know,
Yeah.
because you slow down and then you say the better thing instead of maybe cussing back at the person or hitting the person back.
Yeah.
You're able to control that part of you and say a better thing, something better. So then the actual effect is much better.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can talk about this for a long time, but I'll
It could be another session. It would be a pleasure also to have you again, and perhaps we
I'll
can
be
talk
more than
more deeply
happy.
into that practice. It would be really
Yeah,
interesting. But if you want to share a little bit of that Chan with us, I would be honored to see if you can bring us
absolutely.
some.
Now,
Yeah.
beforehand, I wanted to make sure that I say that I know that Buddhism is considered to be one of the three major religions, but for us, it's a way of life.
Yeah.
You know, it's very different. There is similarities, I guess certain aspects within other religions, but when you start getting into Buddhism, it's a way of living. It's showing you how life works systematically and how you can live it to get the best out of it.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah. Well, this is my beads,
Hmm?
and these are 108 beads that symbolize 108 earthly desires. Every bead has a significance, and one day I can go over it. But what we do is that we unwrap our hands, we go down here, and then we turn it to get the 108 desires within the palms of our hands. So everything in Japanese Buddhism, there's a reason for it. It's
Very
not,
ritualized.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're very to the point, and
Yeah.
I respect that
Yeah.
a lot. So when we chant, I have, unfortunately, because I'm in my RV, that's another story. I guess some of you know that I had to endure the hurricane and restoration, but I have a butsudan, which is where the mantra, the mandala, hangs, and where the inscription of the law of cause and effect is inscribed. So it's vertically inscribed. The point of focus is on a specific character. That character is what compensates everything in the universe. So believe it or not, the practice talks about universe, other universes, other life. So it's fascinating because this one does not shy away from that. And I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So when we get in front of our Gohonso, it's important that we have a posture in respect because we're meeting with the Buddha. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of what we chant, which is the mantra of Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. And let's see how this sounds.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for offering us this
And
moment.
it's important that I make sure that I say this, that it's done with respect towards my practice and towards the temple and the Buddhists and the priests and so forth, and especially the Buddha. Okay. So palms together in front of your heart. Take a deep breath in. And I'll start with a chanting of the 3 times of Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, which is Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, 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 Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. I could have kept going, but for some
Thank you.
reason,
No, it gives us an idea of the humming, because you were talking about that hive thing, and I was intrigued a little bit about, why would it sound like a hive, and I
yeah.
can imagine that all these voices together might be.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. When you hear it in a room full of so many voices. And I swear I cut it off because I've never done this before. It's my first time, so I was a little hesitant, and I'll be honest with you. Because
Okay.
in Japan, they're very conservative when it comes to showing,
Okay.
the practice. Not that I didn't wish to.
Okay.
But they're very yeah, conservative when it comes to that. But when it comes to the beehive, the reason why I said that is because when they get together, and it doesn't, of course, now it doesn't sound like a beehive. It's just
Yeah.
my first impression. But when you get into a room with hundreds of people or even thousands of people chanting this mantra, is just absolutely
Powerful.
mind-boggling. Excuse me. I had the fortune to be at the temple in Japan a few times, and I was able to go to a specific ceremony that is done at 2:30 in the morning. So At that time, it is said that that's where enlightenment happens. It's between the hour of the ox and the tiger. So
Hmm.
it's at 2:30. So the Buddhas get enlightened. And when it comes to the Buddha, I have to specify the Buddha is not just the Buddha, but the Buddha is an enlightened being.
Yeah.
And we can be as well the Buddha. You can be the Buddha, and
We're
I can be,
potentially within
yeah,
ourselves already.
potential Buddha, yeah, in this lifetime. Not, it doesn't have to be in the next lifetime like other practices. But just to give you a glimpse of this ceremony, which is um, one of the most fascinating for me, is that you wake up at 1:30 in the morning, you're at the temple, you have Mount Fuji in the background, and then all of a sudden you go into this temple ground where it holds about 4,000 people, 4 or 5,000. So we're all sitting in tatami mats,
Mm.
because they don't have seating. That's a hard, really, for some Westerners to sit there for hours. That's really hard. So we get to this solemn ceremony that they do every night in the high temple in Japan with the high priest. And when you visit there, you go to this ceremony, and at 2:30 in the morning, you hear the high priest with his resound deep voice do the Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. But in a long, I mean, it's so long that I don't know how he does not breathe within that phrase. And then obviously we get into the chanting, and there's prayers in between. And that's we have 5 prayers, but for this specific ceremony, they engage with it differently. But when you hear these, first they start with these big drum beats,
Oh yeah, it just
and
gets
it's
you.
like your heart.
Yeah.
It's like this boom, 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 boom. I get goosebumps because it's like you're awakening the Buddhas,
Mm.
from the earth. And I'm getting goosebumps all over right now.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there with all these souls, chanting this amazing mantra, you know, and honoring, the high priest and that time within where our founder, which is Nichiren Daishonin, became enlightened, and Shakyamuni Buddha as well. So there's so much to it but just so you can understand the actual being there,
Mm.
and hearing this chant and the vibration, and at that time of the morning, which is quiet and dark, and there's nothing there only but us, it's just a fascinating experience.
Thank you.
So
Thank you not only for sharing that beautiful ambiance experience, but I really want to honor the fact that you shared this chant with us because I know it's normally done in a very, like you say, ritualized context. And I know you've put it out of context and it's something that could be
mm,
not normally done. So
right.
I really want to honor that. And thank you very much for offering us this moment of sacrality in a way. And thank you. Thank
No,
you.
and I thank you for asking, because I've been in a junction, because of everything that happened. And I'm going on a 360 now with COVID. That was a big deal, for me, because I'm a person that I know that when people connect, especially heart and mind, it's powerful. And when it happened with COVID, we just unfortunately had to kind of separate, and
Mm.
that's will be another topic. But I was as hard-headed as I am. I was not. I was against it, and I wanted us to come together. And it was just really at that moment a little heartbreaking for me. But I pray that someday, and it's happening. We're getting back together, and finally seeing that the only way out is together. There's no
Yeah.
separation, regardless of what narrative is out there.
Yeah,
That's what they
absolutely.
want us to do. They want us to separate.
Of course. The
And
division is always the purpose in all kinds of levels and ways. So absolutely.
and um, and again, going back to the fear. Fear is the best weapon you can have to separate yourself from your heart and from the people.
Yeah.
So from day one, that's been my mission, is to let go of fear and come back to the heart. The heart is where all the answers are,
Mm.
and you don't really. There's a certain point that you've gotten as much information as you can out there,
Yeah.
But then you come to the realize that all that information, you had it inside.
Absolutely.
So it's, and then I'm not saying, I'm saying it in a humble way,
Hmm.
in a sense that everybody has it. But unfortunately, we live, like we talk about the 3D world, we live in this world that we're so engulfed in our senses that we want to capture everything from our eyes, our ears, our, from the mouth, from,
Yeah.
that we're so distracted, you
Mhm.
know. Sometimes it's good in a good way if we have the right distractions.
Yeah.
But when we have the wrong distractions, we get lost. So my experience has been basically getting my way back home, which is getting back to the heart. And it's been fascinating because the more, I go through it, the more powerful I feel, um, because I know that I can heal myself. That's one thing that I'm very passionate about, is it's helping others to understand that you can heal yourself.
Everything's within, and we are these healers. We are these intuitives. We are all of these things that we search
Yeah,
outside, have it within.
it's within. And the thing is, it's, again, going to the senses, we're so bombarded that you have to literally have the strength to disconnect, come back in, have a chat with yourself,
Mhm.
because there's answers. I've literally, not only within chanting, if I have a question, I just stay quiet and I have the question, and eventually I get the answer. And
Mhm.
it's not like a voice all of a sudden chattering. It's
Yeah.
not a voice, it's like a telepathic answer, right? And
And the
sometimes,
answers often come in so different. Like I was saying in an interview yesterday with Sumari, I don't know if you had a chance to look at it,
yeah,
but it
but
was this question of, but the all the elements of life, are there to give you answers. It's not just about wanting to hear, like this telepathic voice or whatever. It's
no,
you can find it in your song, in the words,
yeah,
and in symbols, and you open a book and there
yeah.
it's just life itself is a giant oracle of
No, it's
information.
fascinating. I mean, sometimes I'm like,
Crazy,
oh my
yeah.
God, did I
Yeah.
just get that? No, it wasn't a voice. It was just like, I got an answer. And I was like, sometimes I have to have a pad and a paper,
Yeah.
and pencil ready to go, because it's very straightforward,
Yeah.
but the thing is that we're bombarded, our senses are so bombarded, you can't hear it.
Yeah.
So the question is, just try to be inside.
Yeah.
I know it's hard, and a lot of people can't stand staying still,
It's
you know.
it's a challenging, but at the same time it is needed. And as you say, I think it's really important also to remember that it's not just stopping the chatter outside, but also the fact that you've done your journey of facing your fears and your traumas in your case. That's also giving you the freedom of mind to hear, or mind or heart, I would say, to hear this information. Because even if you stop the noise outside, if there's still all of this trauma and stuff unresolved within, there is going to be that inner chatter that's going, and fears that are going to give you a bias on everything you receive. So
Absolutely. I
I
mean,
think, yeah.
and that goes with the nervous system. When you're in
Mhm.
sympathetic, which is a fight or flight constantly, your body and your mind are constantly in reaction.
Yeah.
So even though you say we can stop the chatter outside, but you still have, the nervous system is still active.
Yeah.
So you have to be patient, because your mind's going to be talking, having conversations, and you're like, you know, you
Yeah.
just have to be patient and let all that stuff and it will. I
Yeah.
can tell you from experience, you will have that peace, and you will have the answers, and you will may stumble again, but you will have more tools
Yeah.
when you stumble. And you have to have patience again.
Yeah. Patient with ourselves, with others, and that presence, always that presence, that consciousness to what we go through.
Yeah, I'm not perfect yet. We're not in that.
Was-
I still have my little quirks that I have to work on, but at least I'm aware of it. Yeah.
As they often say in Buddhism, the to keep the spirit of the mind state of the student always.
Yes.
In Zen meditation, when I was doing Zen meditation, it was something they were always bringing, being in the state of the student, of not having this mind filled with certitudes and I'm this and I'm that, and just always remember that you're always on the journey, always a pilgrim, always, always, always.
Yeah. I mean, it's like in yoga too, yoga's not just on the mat. You take your practice outside. So if I'm chanting, I'm going to try to take that person that was there chanting to work. I got to take it to the restaurant, take it to, the beach.
The grocery shop or whatever,
Yeah.
that's very kind of
Oh, yeah.
3D, but
Yeah.
that's even there, that's even more important to have it in that presence. And
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. So it's an ongoing journey, and I, don't be, don't hold yourself back for other journeys as
Mhm.
well. I'm in this journey, but I'm still open for other journeys because it's never ending. But I can tell you that from my personal experience, if it wasn't for Buddhism, I don't know how I could have managed certain things in my life.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, again, I am the one who manages my life. So I can incorporate, just to explore other things too. So
Mhm.
I wouldn't be shy, as long as you're not hurting others and you're not hurting yourself. You always have to think, okay, I'm doing this, but is it good for me?
Mhm.
Is it good for the people around me? Is it good for the environment, for the animals? You don't just make a decision based on, oh, I like this, I think it's good for me.
Yeah, of course.
And then, oh, I'm sorry, the animals just got hurt, or the,
Mhm.
people around me got hurt. No, you have to think, you, you're one.
Globally, and yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that
So
presence is just all over. Yeah,
you're one with the environment.
absolutely.
You're one with the environment.
So, Vicky, we're gonna slowly come to a close for this interview. I was just wondering, sorry, you
Yeah.
mentioned to me that you have well, you have an Instagram, but you also have a podcast on, is it a podcast? Yeah, on a Spotify. Um,
Yes, I
I
do.
think that could be really interesting also for other people to, if you want to talk a little bit about that, and
Yeah.
let's do that.
The Spotify, well, it started in Anchor and then Spotify bought it. I started thinking during the lockdown in 2020, I'm like, maybe I should just talk to people and interview because I wanted to know. I'm always curious about what other people have experienced in their life and their events that turned them around, or, you learn from them as well. So I said, let me just do a podcast.
Hmm.
And I called it Homebound and No Toilet Paper
Which is
because
hilarious.
and people are like, what? And I go, yeah, because we were homebound and ironically we ran out of toilet paper, which was kind of odd. And I'm like, how did that happen? So that's definitely another subject. But I started to do interviews of friends and families, and then I started to interview some doctors, and I'm like, wow, this is really, really awesome because, you know, I like I said, you learn and they learn and we just come together and we realize certain things that we may not have realized through the conversation. And it gives a platform for people to really express themselves and not hold back
Yeah,
because especially with everything that happened, we kind of got censored a lot.
I imagine.
And that's one thing that I'm really like against, which is censoring, because that's what gave me anxiety. So
Yeah.
why am I going to compound myself with not being able to speak out? So I feel I want to revive it. I'll be honest with you. I kind of started it really strong during that time and then I had to go back to work, but I think this puts me on the spot to revive it and to have welcome anybody to experience, share their experience humbly and without no judgment. And it's only talk, so it's not video,
Yep.
which I like because I can be my silly self and not worry about my makeup.
Come on, you're
But
gorgeous. It's beautiful that
oh,
you can bring your radiance to the screen.
I appreciate it, one to the other. Um, and and before I say that, I have to mention this, that your session, I'll humbly say this, that the session I had with you, the CIT session,
Mhm.
was amazing.
Thank
I
you.
encourage many to do it because it helped me opened up a perspective that I didn't have. So I thank you for that.
Thank you.
And the
Thank
three
you for
words that
trusting the process.
I absolutely, you have definitely something going on there that's going to help a lot of people, and it's already helping people. So
Thank you.
I encourage you to keep doing it. So the words that you showed me were to engage, connect. I am a connector. I feel like I love to put people together, and being between two worlds, that was spot on because I'm floating here, I'm there, and I need to get in the middle and just start, engaging myself into the 3D and doing what I love, which is to help people. But thank you for that. And again, I guess I'll give you the information if anybody's
Yes,
interested.
for Instagram as well. I think you're on Instagram as
I'm
well.
in
Or?
Instagram. I think it's
Mhm.
Vicky Point Vasquez one. I'll send it to you. I'm
Okay,
not too good at
no
remembering
problem.
these things, but I'll send you the link to the podcast. And
Super.
if anybody wants to definitely engage in a conversation and express themselves, I welcome that, and it'll give me an incentive to do what I needed to do, which is to continue.
Connecting the people and the
Yeah,
dots and finding the
absolutely.
middle way.
Everybody has their particular mission, I guess.
Absolutely.
We can't shy away from that.
No, we can't. And if we don't, things don't turn out super well. So it's better to just go there and stop resisting. Before we part, I just wanted to ask you if you have any just final words you would like to share with us, or any thoughts or anything that would you would like to share with us.
I guess after what I've been through so far, of course, my journey and our journey is going to continue, is that not to be hard on yourself, not to be hard on yourself, to love, to try to love yourself more. I'm saying it and I have to say it to myself. And
Yes,
it is to love yourself. You cannot, it's hard to love somebody else when you're still not loving yourself.
lots of truth there.
And a lot of that happens when we are a child. We suffer a lot of the chaos during that time. And Danny and Elena, all these beautiful beings that I've been so grateful to meet, and you have pointed it out, that the child within us has to be loved again, because we had to be there for ourselves. Unfortunately, a lot of us didn't have the support, um, the shoulder to cry on, or the hand to hold on to, during the times that we were afraid. So we have to be gentle towards ourselves, love ourselves, um, and let go of the fear so we can connect to our heart again, pretty much. Yeah, it's
Thank
all
you.
in there.
Absolutely, everything's in there, and like you say, being in a way our own parent, our own loving and present parent, for ourselves, because it's easy to reproduce the same kind of patterns we've been through. So it's also, like you said, stopping this transgenerational trend and just put an end to it by being our own loving parent to ourselves, but others as well. So I think
Absolutely.
it's a lot of wisdom in what you say. So thank you
Thank you.
immensely, Vicky, for you sharing all of your experience. I know there's so much more. I
There's
mean,
so
we could
much I wanted to talk to you, but I know I don't, I can be here for a few hours, but that's not fair.
we could I mean we can do another interview. I mean, it
Absolutely.
would be a pleasure because you have so much wonderful things to share with us and beautiful wisdom and love, really beautiful experiences. So thank you so much
Oh,
for
thank you
sharing with
so
us.
much for allowing me to express myself, and I hope to speak to you soon.
Thank you. And thank you for being also so very vulnerable and authentic in what you shared. It's, personal stuff. And that
Yeah,
means a lot to me because when we're able to be really ourselves with others like that, we don't realize it, but it brings so much to other people, the opportunity to say, oh, I'm not the only one. Oh my God, I thought I was the only one going through all this by myself. And when you see another person just being totally vulnerable and say, this happened in my life and I've been feeling that way, I think it brings so much solace. So thank you for being so real and so
thank
truthful
you
about
for
who you are. So
Thank you for allowing me this platform to open up. It actually, I feel more relieved.
Wonderful. Thank you. Wonderful. So take immense care of yourself, and we'll have perhaps another opportunity to talk soon in person or on camera.
Thank you, my dear.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Hello, beautiful soul. You have been on a spiritual journey for some time, or perhaps you're just starting your inner journey. And you probably have questions that remain unanswered right now, although all your answers lie within yourself, as always. But sometimes we need someone to just give us a little nudge. And personally, as an intuitive and a transmitter and a creator, I have created my own type of approach where I offer the people the opportunity to ask a few questions, a maximum of 5 questions, where I will provide from my inner guidance, which is the fractal of source that I am and that you are as well as my high vibration guidance, will provide a vocal transmission. And also we will be creating an artwork just for you, unique and original, based on your questions, and the motifs and the colors that will be chosen for the artwork will have in some way some information about the answers to your question. And I will also use a piece of music that, either through the frequency of its melody, of its words, will also give you some clues as to what the answers to your questions might be. And I only serve as a nudge, as a pointer, in order for you to, after that, resonate or not with this information, and then you can pursue your own spiritual and inner journey, just having been just helped a little bit on the path. So if you're interested in a creative intuitive transmission session, which I call CIT, I invite you to follow the link that's below in the description of this video, and on my website, abigailrichard.com/CIT. And don't hesitate to ask for more information or just book a session. Have a lovely day. Bye.